An hour later, in his room, Dorothy Palmer was still jumpy. He paced back and forth, telling Dorothy what had happened. The more agitated he became, the faster he paced. Nipper observed from a bookstop, swinging his head as if watching a ping-pong match. The bird had been waiting on the windowsill as usual. When Palmer returned home, "Sit down," said Dorothy, who sat on the homework desk. "You're making me nervous." "I can't help it," said Palmer. "I almost got killed out there." "Palmer, they kill pigeons in this town, not people." "That's what you think. You didn't see the way they were looking at me. And don't say—" He formed the words "kill pigeons" with his lips around him. He nodded towards Nipper, who was stopped and cocked his head as if listening. "Sorry," said Dorothy. "So, what are you going to do?" Palmer threw out his arms. "I don't know." He spoke to Nipper. "You dumb, stupid bird brain. Why did you do that? What am I going to do?" When he had come home and found Nipper at the window as usual, he was both happy and not happy. He half wished Nipper hadn't showed up, so he could get rid of the whole problem. For a moment he considered pulling down the shade, then hated himself for even thinking that, and he threw up the window. He took two fistfuls of his own hair, squatted on the floor, and screamed up at the pigeon. "What am I going to do?" Nipper's answer was a gargling noise. "Teach him to shoot foul shots. Get it? Foul. Fowl. Dorothy tittered at her own joke. Palmer wasn't amused. Dorothy had Palmer's magic marker in one hand, a Nerf ball in the other. She tossed him in the ball in large black letters. On the spongy ball surface, she had written "Nipper's ball." "Big help you are," said Palmer. Palmer's nervousness lasted until he went to sleep that night. He resumed when his alarm clock woke him up the next morning with the customary nip on his earlobe. He did not feed Nipper on the roof as usual. Instead, he spread newspaper on his floor and pounded out some honey crunchers there, plus some leftover peas from dinner the night before. Nipper loved peas. And Palmer quickly opened the window and shooed the pigeon into the sky. Now, what should he wear? He was afraid if he wore his usual colors, Nipper might again recognize him and drop on him after school. He needed a disguise. He looked around. He found a long-sleeved white shirt that had once worn it cut to his cousin Linda's wedding, and a dark brown trousers that went with it. He checked himself in the mirror. He still looked too much like Palmer LaRue. So he went down to the basement, to the closet where his mother had stored everyone's winter clothes. He got out his thick quilted high-length coat, the one his father had said could keep him warm up at the North Pole. He also grabbed a green woolen stocking cap with a pom-pom on it. "Why not?" his father said. Black and white checkered scarf, and he stuffed that in his pocket, was sneaking out the door, and his mother screeched, "Halt!" She approached him, squinting as if not believing her eyes. "What's this?" she said, fingering the quilted coat. "A coat." "I see that. It's May. It's warm out. I heard it's going to get colder later on." "Not that cold." "Okay, look. I'll Zipper it." He unzipped the coat. "I gotta go, Mom. I'm going to be late." He bolted down the steps, got to the sidewalks, hoping his mother would not call him back. She did not. In the classroom, Palmer kept looking at the clock. For once, he wanted school to last forever. He did not want to walk home. He dreaded the closing bell. When he came, he marched up to the teacher and told her he thought that she should keep him after school. She looked at him funny. "And why is that, Palmer?" "Because I was bad." She looked surprised. Palmer was never bad. "I was not aware of that." "You just didn't catch me." "Is that so? And now you wish to confess?" "Yes." "You want to clear your conscience?" "Yes." "I see." She was smiling. She settled back in her chair. "So, what bad thing did you do?" "I spit on the floor." Her eyebrows went up. "Really? Right here? In this classroom?" "Yes." "When did you do it?" After lunch." She stood. "Would you mind showing me where you did it?" Palmer He had not anticipated this. He had not thought the confession required proof. I wiped it up, he said. She nodded, still smiling. Ah, well, that was good of you. I think that settles it. You may go now. You may go home now. Palmer stood there, hanging from her eyes. He could not bring himself to go outside. He took a step back, turned to the side, and spit on the floor. Look, he said, I did it again. The teacher gasped. She was no longer smiling. He was ordered to fetch a paper towel and clean it up. He was sent to the blackboard to write on 100 times, I will never, 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 never again spit on the floor. 500 nevers plus the ever were on his own idea. He wrote as slowly as he could. The teacher was in and out of the room as he wrote. At one point, the guy showed up at the door. What are you doing? Beans asked. Being punished, said Palmer. Beans leaned in to look on the blackboard. You spit on the floor? Yep. The guy's goggled eyes. Was it a big one? Said Motto. A lunger? A lunger, said Palmer. The guys were swooning. They were impressed. They were really impressed. Took me 5 minutes to clean it up. At the moment, he could have been elected president of the game. The teacher returned and the guys took off. From then on, whenever the teacher left the room or simply wasn't looking, Palmer erased what he had just written. When he finally packed up to go home, she came to the blackboard. She counted sentences. 9, she exclaimed. Palmer, you wrote like a snail. Go faster, he said. I'll go faster, she said. No, you may stop. Punishment's over. Palmer clutched the chalk. I don't think I should stop till I get to 100. I can feel the sentences working. I think I need a whole punishment to make me stop spitting. The teacher stepped back. The look on her face said, is he going to fire one at me? Then her expression changed and hardened. Palmer, she said firmly, I'm confident you will never spit in the room again. Now put down the chalk and go home. He put down the chalk. He got on his coat and put it on. He zipped it up. The teacher's jaw dropped, his eyes widened, and pulled up the green woolen cap over his ears. Then he wrapped the checkered scarf around his neck, pulled it up just below his eyes. She was about to say something. My mother's afraid I'll catch the flu. He blurted out and ran from the room before she could stop him. When he got outside, his heart sank. The guys were still there. They had ignored his heavy coat on the way to school, but now, seeing he added the scarf and hat, they cracked up. Hey, Snots, where's the blizzard? You look like Frosty the Snow Nerd. My mom made me, he told her. I'm trying to sound resentful. Says I'm getting the flu. He tried to steer them on another topic. What are you doing here anyway? Beans pulled alongside, draped his arm around Palmer's shoulders. We're your buddies, Snots. You get punished, we wait. His smile was as flat as a cartoon. Palmer, Henry was the one who occasionally called him by his right name. Be honest, did you really spit on the floor? Palmer looked at him all in the eye. Yeah, I said I did, didn't I? They weren't sure whether to believe him, but they wanted to. Palmer could tell. Then suddenly he realized he had stumbled onto a way to divert the attention from Nipper. He marched back to the school door, pulled it open dramatically, and pointed inside. He yanked down the scarf and growled, Go ask Miss Kiner. They believed. He could see it was on his face, and they mobbed him, slapping high fives, cheering his name. On the way home, they pestered him again and again and again. The look on their teacher's face, and laughed and thumped him on the back. They said he didn't think he'd ever do such a thing. They no longer seemed to care, or even notice that he was muffled up like a mummy. But they did scan the skies. In the midst of the laughing and thumping, Palmer caught their eyes drifting upward, and Mutto had said something new with him this day, a slingshot. Palmer pulled the scarf higher and prayed Nipper was already home. Nipper was home that day, waiting on the windowsill, but Palmer was too worn out to be relieved. All the stress and weirdness of the day had left him totally wrecked. It was all he could do to drag himself down to dinner. Summer vacation was over a month away. He couldn't imagine lasting that long. But he did, somehow. Day by day, he got through it. Each morning he left the house faced two problems. No matter how well he solved them the next day, the next morning, they'd be waiting for him again. One, how to avoid Nipper on the way home from school. And two, how to keep the guys from turning against him. He had discovered the first day getting into trouble could both detain him after school and boost his popularity with the boys. So he spit on the blackboard. He talked and laughed in class and took off his shoes and socks. He hid them under the map closet, tickled the other students, and on Monday, the last week before summer vacation, he tickled the teacher. Palmer, she shrieked, what has gotten into you? She had them asking him questions sometime now. He was running out of answers. Puberty, he said. He didn't know what that meant, but he heard that word happen to teenagers, and it made them batty, or at least in the eyes of grown-ups. Try again, she said. You're too young for puberty. I'm very mature for my age, he said. Good, she said. Then you're mature enough to stay after school for a week. That would take care of the rest of the school year. Palmer forced himself not to grin. The teacher tickle made Palmer immensely popular, not only with the Beans boys, but throughout the entire school. His reputation soared as a kid who did crazy things. So students broke out laughing when they saw him in the hallways. They egged him on. Do something nutty, they offered him morsels from their lunches. You're famous, Dorothy told him in his room one day. I know, said Palmer, slumping, but I don't want to be. I want to be a nobody. I want to be invisible. If I was invisible, then Nipper would be too. Dorothy, for no apparent reason, started to giggle. She quickly clamped her hand over her mouth. Sorry, she said. I know I'm not supposed to laugh, but sometimes I can't help it. I keep thinking of you tickling your teacher. Another giggle spouted. It's just not you. Palmer threw up his hands. I know. And wait till you see what happens in 2 days. Dorothy's eyes widened. What? Miss Kinner and I won't have detention the last day of school. I will have to go home on the regular time. My mom will never let me wear my winter coat anymore to the weather. I'm afraid Nipper's going to see me and come home from school. Palmer paced about the room. I have nightmares all day. I see Nipper landing on my head and Bean snatching him by his legs and he couldn't even say the rest. He went over to Nipper, who was strutting along the book steps. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? Said Dorothy. Palmer stroked Nipper's smooth, glossy head. Wear a mask. Dorothy's hands shot to her mouth. Oh no. Oh yeah. His fingertips lightly tickled Nipper's breast feathers, and then he just had discovered that Nipper loved this and would stay still for as long as he kept doing it. Do you have a mask? Said Dorothy. My elephant mask. Dorothy screeched. Your elephant mask? From Halloween with the trunk? Yeah. Both Dorothy's hands clamped to her mouth as if she was about to throw up. Her cheeks flushed, her eyes bulged. She ran from the room, slammed the door. Palmer could hear her muffled sounds coming from the stairway. If he didn't know better, he would have thought she was sobbing. Minutes later, she returned, wiping wetness from her cheeks, struggling to keep a straight face. I'm sorry, she said. She joined Palmer in scratching Nipper's breast feathers. I can't wait till school is over, said Palmer. I know. But I don't want it to be over because then it'll be closer to my birthday. I know. It's all crazy. I almost get dizzy sometimes. I know. Lightly, lazily, they tickled Nipper's feathers, and their fingers got mingled. You know what? Said Dorothy. What? You're a hero. Huh? All that stuff you're doing? You're probably the naughtiest student there ever has been in our school, and you're doing it to save him. Palmer frowned. That's no hero. I just live in the wrong town, that's all. The pigeons seemed to be looking at them separately, one with each orange eye. A faint murmur came from deep in his throat. Hear that? Said Dorothy. He's saying that feels so good. Why would anybody want to shoot him? Said Palmer. Nobody's going to. Palmer turned to her. But why would they want to? Dorothy stared back. She had no answer. On the last day of school, wearing his elephant mask on the walk home, the trunk hanging down to his waist, Palmer was a sensation. The problem was keeping the mask on, because first Beans, then everyone else had to yank on the trunk. Every time the mask was pulled off, Palmer covered his face with his hands. He imagined Nipper was circling over his head, trying to spot him. At last he made it home, collapsed onto the bed. Nipper marched up one of his legs and down the other. The bird's feet tickled, but Palmer was too worn out to laugh. He could smile, though. School was over finally, but another school was about to begin. Palmer had just finished supper Monday when the doorbell rang, and it was the guys. "Let's go," said Beans. "Where?" said Palmer. "School. Come on. It starts in 10 minutes. Beans grabbed Palmer's wrist and pulled him down the front steps. "Is this kind of joke? School," said Palmer. "School's over." "Not that school." They were trotting. Beans still had his wrist. Palmer pulled himself free. "What school?" They were heading towards the park. "Where are we going?" Beans' eyes lit up. "Wringer School." Palmer felt walloped. He jerked to a halt. Suddenly, his throat would not work. He could not speak. Everyone stopped. "Bean, what's the matter?" Palmer asked. "Nothing." "Ain't you coming to Wringer School, Snots?" said Muddle. He was leering. "Don't you want to learn how to ring pigeons?" said Beans. He moved his fists as if he were twisting a towel. "Don't you want to learn how to wring their necks?" Henry was looking away. Bean was in his face. "You hate pigeons, don't you?" Palmer nodded. "Sure." Moto's eyes were scanning the sky. Beans thumped his shoulder. "So let's go." They ran. That was the worst of it, the running. "What am I doing?" Palmer kept thinking. But his legs ran. At the soccer field, a mob of kids were gathered about, and a man with a neon pink baseball cap, the man who had been waiting for Palmer for 10 years, the ringmaster. "You stay out of the way," he was saying, calling, really, so everyone could hear. "Each shooter gets 5 shots at a time. Count them until the last one. You stay here." He pointed to the ground at his feet. "Right here. And where are your eyes all the time?" "On you," piped half a dozen voices. The man nodded. "That's right. I'm easy to find, easy to see. Guarantee nobody else is going to be wearing this ugly hat, this ugly." Giggle. "So, you're listening for the 5 shots. Watching me. When I go like this," he lifted his pink hat and waved it, "that's your signal. You move fast. 3 of you. We move in groups. First man gets the empty bird box and takes it." He pointed over there. "So then he can load them up again. 5 more birds. The other 2, you're moving out onto the field. Fast. Everything you do is fast." He replaced his hat. He looked over the group. "What's the magic word, men?" Everyone said, "Fast." The man paused and whispered, "Why?" For a long time there was no answer. Then a mild, uncertain voice spoke. "There's so many pigeons." The man snapped his fingers and pointed to Henry. "Bingo! There's 5,000 birds, men, and only 1 day to turn them into fertilizer. Every dead bird means $5 to maintain this here park. You're standing in. Nobody here don't play in this park." No hands went up. He shrugged. Then there you go. It's for you. You're helping yourself." He looked at them looked at all of them. "Any questions?" Palmer had a million, but he asked none. Nor did anyone else. The man nodded. "All right, last item. Ringing the bird." A cheer went up from the crowd. The man held up something other than another cheer. This something was a gray, perhaps once a large sock. It was stuffed to the plumpness, most of it, with a narrow neck and ending in the golf ball-sized head. "Stunt pigeons," someone called out. Everyone laughed. The man stared sternly. "Get your giggles over with now. There'll be no giggles on the 7th of August. No horsing around. Anybody that's not at all, it's all business." He wagged his thumb. You're out of here. You understand?" Capped heads nodded. "Okay, now, shooter's done." You're a team of 3. One of you's gone for the box. The other 2 zipped onto the field. What are you going to find? You're going to find one of 3 things. You're either going to find 5 dead birds, or you're going to find 5 floppers. That's what I call the wounded. Or you're going to find, and this is the worst case combination of above, he got some sorry shooters in this town, and they get real dead eyes, but most of them are in between. He raised a finger. Back up a minute. If a wounded bird are floppers, what do you call them, birds? He looked over at the group and their eyes were twinkling. Some of the up front said, croakers. The ringmaster laughed. Trick question, son. The answer is dead. Dead is dead. There's no other word for it. He ruffled the kid's hair. All right. You're on the field. Each of you has a bird, and not the same bird. No fighting over who gets which bird. This ain't no Easter egg hunt. Giggles. All right, when you come to your bird, if it's dead, fine. If it ain't dead, also fine. Whichever. You snatch up, get to the next one. Between the 2 of you, you're coming back with 5 birds. Here's where you check them out. Check them. You see that right there? There's dead. He swung his head slowly, looking at everybody's face. You wring its neck. Palmer heard the stiff squeak, or else it was silent. The man held the gray thing above his head, one hand here, one hand there, and twist in opposite directions. You do that hard, and you will do it quick. We're not here to torture these animals. We're here to kill them humanely, hard and quick. That's all it takes. Into the trash bag. Go to the back of the line. Next time you're up, somebody gets the box. Keep rotating. Everybody gets a chance. What's the magic word? Fast. He looked them over. Any questions? A voice came from the crowd. How will we know if it's dead or not? Someone yipped. Kick its pulse! The man's glare cut off the laughter. The trees were silent. You'll know, said the man. The sky was empty. The man clapped. All right, line up. This one here is a flopper. He held up a gray stuffed sock. I want each of you to step forward and ring it, like I showed you. And then get out of here. I'll see you on August 7th. 6 a.m. sharp. Let's go. The crowd formed a line. Palmer had notions of drifting away. The beans and muddle were hurting him their way. As he waited in line, Palmer felt himself to be 4 years old again. The first family fest, with the wounded, lopsided pigeon coming towards him with the gray, sour smell of gun smoke, growing stronger with every breath. He took his eyes from the field, fixed them on the pink-hatted ringmaster. He noticed how intently the man stared into the face of each kid who stepped up and took the sock. It seemed that the man was on the lookout for pretenders, for kids who really didn't want to be there, for wimps. And if the man detected a wimp, what would he do? Would he cry out, aha, and send the kid away with jeers of the crowd? Would that kid ever be able to show his face again in the town? Ahead of him, Beans and then Muddle wrung the sock. Like most of the kids, they really got into it, grunting with the effort. And now the man was holding it out to Palmer. Palmer accepted. Bean's voice came nearby. Ring it, snots! Palmer could almost feel the man's eyes on him. He wondered how his face looked. Would the man say, aha? Palmer had half expected the sock to sprout pink feet and glossy feathers. It did not. He wanted to call out the other ringers in training. Hey, who are they trying to kill? This is no pigeon. You want to know what a real pigeon feels like? Ask me. There's nothing but a sock. Go on, son, said the man. Hard and quick. Palmer wrung its neck hard and quick. He dashed it to the ground and the man's feet and marched off. The man said nothing.